Hi, this is Nicole Scott.
And this is Stuart Haston from Mobile Geeks.
And today we're going to talk to you about the Zenfone 6 from ASUS.
The ASUS Zenfone 6 is a 6-inch smartphone with a 720p display. It's powered by a 2 GHz Intel Atom Z2580 processor alongside 2 GB of RAM. On the rear, we have a 13 megapixel camera, and this phablet weighs in at only 200 grams, which is about the norm for a phone this size. One of the killer features is that it comes with dual SIMs and a micro SD card slot where you can add up to 64 GB of memory.
Okay, so in terms of design and build quality, the device feels great. It's got a good end-hand feel. It's just under 200 grams, which is standard, or pretty much standard right now for a device of this size. You can see we've got a USB port right here on the bottom. We have the actual little gap here on the side is so that you can open a device. It's a little bit unusual having it down here on the bottom left. On the top we have an audio jack. We've got our camera on the back right in the center, which is kind of where you expect it, next to the flash and the ASUS logo. Around the side here we have the up and down rocker switch and the power switch. These buttons feel pretty good. There's lots of give, but they're also quite springy. They feel fantastic. The finish on the device is described as a ceramic finish. Apparently this was requested by Johnny Shear himself, so well done Johnny, good call. It doesn't feel plasticky, it feels pretty professional. Now I'll just attempt to take off the back cover so we can have a little bit of a look inside the device. You can see that it's kind of a little bit difficult to open. You've got to get your thumb right in here. Oh, there you go. Now that I have, here you go, we can now look inside. And you can see, this is the battery right here. The battery is kind of, you can see it on both sides. It's kind of tucked in. It's a non-removable battery, which is kind of unusual because usually with non-removable batteries, they're kind of hidden. But you see it's held in place by these two plastic strips. And the whole thing is kind of supported by the battery. But what we do have is the battery doesn't go all the way to the edge. So these edges can kind of feel a little bit flimsy. But I'm sure this is something that Nicole will cover a little bit later on when we talk about the display.
So this 6-inch phone has a 720p display. The vibrancy is good. I think the color saturation is great. I think that we have some really nice hues on here. You know, the blacks look pretty good. Let's check that out. Right, so if we look at the edge, yeah, I mean, I think that this phone does look really quite nice. You get some nice detailing, but the problem is that at $200, the display is the one thing that is going to be cheaper. It's the one piece of hardware that is going to be very indicative of the price. But I think that they've done a pretty decent job on the colors, the looks, everything, but you can kind of see it that we have some issues on the side here if we press from the back, right? So that this isn't the highest quality display, that there are some issues here, and that, you know, if you do drop the phone, I don't know if there's going to be issues long term with how this kind of comes through, because it's really quite not great. It's really not great there. But apart from that, I think that the color, the display, the viewing angles, let's just head back into gallery so you can check out some of the viewing angles on this. Right, I mean, like, oh, we're getting some glare there, but I mean, the viewing angles really aren't too bad. Right, everything apart from the pushing there, I think the display looks quite good. All right, so now let's check it out outside. So we have a 13 megapixel shooter that takes really great photos. I would say that the camera is one of the best features on the smartphone. So we have time rewind that kind of, you know, you can go back a few seconds if you want to jump in a picture or something like that. HDR, everyone knows what that is. Miniatures like a defocus, they have depth of field. Let's just try that out. So here's an example of a photo that I took with depth of field. So it actually takes 2 pictures and then it blurs out the rest. It works quite well for a software solution. So if we keep on going through some of the features, depth of field, smart remove, all smiles, beautification. All of these you've seen before. Smart remove takes a couple of pictures and it takes out people from the background. There's a GIF maker here. A beautification is always a fun one. Just let me head back through here and you can take a look at some of my beautified photos. All right, so there's one of me, slightly beautified. Here's one of Stu with beautification on. There's a ton of my food photos. Yeah, this is a really good example of depth of field right here, actually. So you can see that the Coke can is totally in focus. You can even zoom in, see the writing, see the droplets, and the background is completely defocused, right? It looks really good. So the camera just has a lot of really great features. And one of the ones that I have to point out right now, so the camera has a lot of really great features. So right now I'm going to turn off the lights and then I'm going to take a photo. All the lights are off. You can barely see the figurines there. Let's put the phone up. So you can see here that we have the owl sign up, and that means that the low light's on. So low light is only a maximum of 3 megapixels. Let's just go back here. So you can see that the screen's fairly well lit. So if we take a photo, okay, now that did have the fill light on, but that's quite good for nighttime. Now let's just take it with the flash off and see how that goes. And that's quite good for a pitch dark room. It's absolutely black in here, and that's the quality of the photo that it took. We also have a really cool selfie mode where you can use the rear-facing camera. The Zenfone will detect how many faces are in the picture, and then you get 3 options so you get the perfect selfie.
So here we are listening to some rock and roll, testing out the sound of the Zenfone 6. And you can see we've got the cover off still here on the back, and we're exposing the one speaker here, which is in the corner. So this is a single mono speaker. We'll just put the cover back on so we can... Okay. Here we have our music app. Now let's just see how loud this baby can go. Okay, so there we are, full volume. And it's not the loudest. It's certainly not as loud as a HTC One or the One M8, which is just incredibly loud. But it's decent for a phablet or a smartphone. And I think the other thing to bear in mind is that it's not tinny. It's a lot less tinny than a lot of devices we've used. It might not be very bassy, but it's actually quite a well-rounded and quite clear, crisp sound. So the internals of the Zenfone 6 include an Intel Clover Trail Z2580 processor, which isn't, in theory, at least in the benchmarks, it's not the fastest processor, and it's actually quite a way off Qualcomm Snapdragon 801. But the 801 is, let's be honest, it's the fastest thing out there. So maybe it's a little bit unfair to compare the Zenfone 6 with something like a Galaxy S5 at this stage, especially when you take into consideration the massive difference in price. But in terms of performance, I think we can all say that Intel have done a very good job optimizing for Android, and that the whole experience is very slick, it's very user-friendly, there's no lag. One thing I will say though, we did test this device out in terms of gaming, and it actually did very well in certain games. It actually did better in some of our gaming tests. For example, I think it's NBA 2K13, and the graphics were rendered better, in fact, than they were on the Qualcomm equivalent. But when we tried games, one game in particular, actually, it was Grand Theft Auto San Jose, and San Andreas, I should say, that game just would not load, it would not boot. So I think Intel maybe still have some work to do in terms of optimizing the performance for certain games, for the drivers, but overall, you're looking at a device which is as good as anything in its class.
So this is going to be one long section because there is a lot going on here. If we go from the home screen, you can see that we have what's next. Then we have the option to go to camera, telephone, and messaging. There's also the ASUS widget up here, and you can access the notification bar with your emails as well as the settings, quick settings, straight into settings, all from the home screen. Now if we look at the UI, so this has the Zen UI. This is a new evolution for ASUS. Previously, they had this beautiful iteration of vanilla Android with just these really nice, simple, sweet additions. I've been a pad phone user in the past, so this was kind of a big move for me to leave vanilla Android and kind of accept the Zen UI. But there's a lot going on with this software and some pretty neat additions. Let's just start with what's next. So this takes, all of your future meetings. It's supposed to pull in birthdays. It'll notify you of weather changes, a whole bunch of different stuff. So ASUS has a bunch of stuff kind of integrated for helping you turn this into a true productivity device. So there's also do it later. So I have these new text messages. Right, so I joined Omelette, which is one of their new messaging chat services, and then you can put reply later. Right, so added to do it later. So if we head into do it later, then it appears here, right? Share with, and I can say, yes, I've done this, done that, meeting, to do tasks all completed. So if we keep on going on, the UI is quick. ASUS has done a really good job making this UI nice and fast. The transitions are quite good. Everything looks really good with the speed and performance of the UI. I'm 100% happy. One thing that took me a little while to get is that I'm used to 1 and 2 finger pull down. But what I did there, it's like on a tablet or on CyanogenMod. So it's quick settings on the right, or notifications on the left. So it's similar to the tablet style. The Zen UI looks really good. So they have this kind of circular motif that reminds me a lot of Apple. But they have some really nice software additions. So let's go through this. Flashlight. There's even an SOS. So you can have SOS 1 pulse, 2 pulse, 3 pulse, just straight flashlight. And that's all from your quick setting. So airplane mode. There's one-handed mode, which is pretty cool because you can choose to 4.7 inch, 4.5 inch, 4.3 inch. Now, the thing that I'm unhappy with the one-handed is that they should have put this to the bottom, right? If you're using this with one hand, that means that you want to reach the top. Right? And the problem with the big phones is you can't reach the top with one hand. So I don't know why they've chosen to leave this gap here, right? But that's an easy software fix. They could probably just move that down. But you can move it left or right, depending on if you're a righty or a lefty, which I totally love. Back into full screen. Now if we keep on looking at the quick settings, GPS, airplane, smart saving, really nice, aggressive, works really, really well. I haven't been using it just to test out the battery life. I was extremely aggressive on my use over the past 24 hours, and I have, let's just see, extremely aggressive, and 43%. And that's not with power save on. If I have power save on, I'm looking at 3 days of use. It's pretty impressive, actually. I'm kind of a big fan. So there's reading mode, which slightly polarizes the display. I don't know if you can see that. And then there's even glove mode. Now, if you accidentally have this on, this phone is impossible to use without gloves. So if you have it, enable glove mode, right? So the touch sensitivity is so high that, let's just say I go into Facebook and I'm trying to scroll, I end up, oh, it's kind of working now. But when I had this on, I just ended up clicking on everything. It was kind of making me crazy. Actually, what was it? It was in my WhatsApp. I was trying to send someone a message. Right, so let's just hit that. And then I just kept on, oh, well, it seems to be working out. Okay, so maybe not as bad as before. But before, when I was scrolling, I just kept on tapping on people and opening them up as I was scrolling down. So I guess when the glove, yeah, well, not as disappointing as it was yesterday. So Mirrorcast, obviously a really great feature for wireless display if you want to send stuff from your phone to your TV. But there's some other things in here. Supernote, like that has been on 1,000,001 ASUS devices. So if you don't know about that by now, you should check it out. It's like Evernote, very similar. Splendid, which is really nice. You can adjust the color temperature of your display to make everything, nice and vivid or not. So I really like that you're allowed to really customize your display. Audio Wizard, also another good function, right? Movie mode, gaming mode, speech mode. Web storage, this comes with 5 GB of ASUS web storage. But there's some other things that ASUS has included that unfortunately you can't really use unless you have another ASUS phone. So ShareLink is a cool thing, right? So say you're at a party and you want to share a bunch of files and phone or photos and things like that, but you can't get ShareLink on Play. So you would need another Zenfone that has this installed on it, which is like a nice effort, but I wish that they'd put a Play app with that. So let's take a look. There's Setup Wizard, which is pretty nice. It helps you set up your phone, import your contacts, all the rest of that. There's PC Link, which I will demo later. This is a really cool thing. So you can download PC Link onto your phone, and then you can use this as a remote or like a mouse pad, right? So this is like quite a cool function. So you can do group collaborations as well. It's really cool, right? Very, very cool. So it's ASUS's kind of, like you'll see like with what's next, there's a lot going on this is aimed at being a productivity device. So what else do we have here in the back? ASUS's weather widget as well. This is on all of their stuff. It's AccuWeather. It's really nice. It appears on your home screen, or lock screen, sorry, which is pretty nice. And another really cool feature is if you swipe to the right, it goes directly into camera. And I was playing around with Beautify last night. But we'll get into that we got into that in the camera section. So ASUS has done a pretty good job. I find it really interesting that they've adopted like a CyanogenMod or the tablet Android version for the notification bar. Let's just check out the case and the software integration available on the case. So here I've put on the case. It's a really nice case. You can see a bunch of information here, your calls, messages, emails, time. But then, let's just open and close that. If you swipe over, you get the weather. If you swipe over one more time, you get a magic 8-ball. Is the ASUS Zenfone 6 a great phone? Oh, wait, let's try that again. Let's see what the magic is. Is the ASUS Zenfone 6 a great phone? As I see it, ask again later. Oh, well. But really interesting software configuration, a nice little addition. I really do like this case. It gives the phone a very kind of high-end feel.
So very generally speaking, in hardware terms, what do we have here?
720p display, 6-inch device, Intel Atom Z2580. I think all around, this is a solid mid-range spec list. It's not going to be taking on any high-end device, but for the mid-range, I think it's doing exactly what it should be.
Okay.
So this is a good-looking handset. The finish on the back, I like how Johnny himself ensured that it had that like ceramic-like feeling. That's kind of hot. I like anything that's personally designed by Johnny. That's his #1 fan.
Well, I'm not sure how much a direct involvement Johnny had, but I have to agree, the back of the device feels good and the in-hand feels pretty good as well.
Yeah, the weight, 200 grams. This is exactly where a device of this size should weigh in at, so that's really good. But the only thing...
We did notice one issue, right?
The display. Yeah, when you flex on the back, you get those hard battery lines where you can see that the build just isn't there.
Which is quite a big issue. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah, the big question to me is if you hit it at the wrong point, what kind of issue are you going to have with the display? That's going to be a kind of an unknown variable for me. That's quite a big one.
Right. So actually, even though we're only getting 720p here, I thought the screen and the display actually was pretty attractive.
Yeah, I thought the colors were nice and punchy. I thought the viewing angles were quite good. It's an IPS display, so you have nice color saturations. Like all in all, for a device at this price point, I thought the quality of the display was pretty stand up. There was just that issue with the build quality that made the display a bit questionable.
And in terms of being scratch proof and stuff, you've got the Corning Gorilla Glass 3 as well. So
it's Corning Gorilla Glass 3, but I've never had much luck with any Gorilla Glass being actually scratch proof.
It's just marketing. But it sounds good.
It sounds good.
Yeah. So in terms of cameras, you've got the regular rear-facing camera.
13 megapixel Pixel Master.
And then you've got a selfie camera.
Which is actually also the rear-facing camera because ASUS has their selfie technology that recognizes faces.
Gotcha. But then you've got, what's this on the front then?
Well, I kind of call it a vanity cam because there's a mirror application that uses the front-facing camera as a mirror. So it's, other than that, you're using the back camera for all your selfies.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is one of the winning points of this device for me. The Pixel Master technology, I took that video where I took a photo of a butterfly in a black box, and you could see what it was, right? So like low light in like dark conditions is exceptional. Pretty much there's no other camera on the market that can compete, which to me is incredibly impressive because I'm including the 1020 by Nokia, the 42 megapixel bad boy.
Right. So out on the street, how did it perform in low light?
Good.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I was using between night mode and HDR mode, and I found that the HDR kind of smoothed things out, and the nighttime was a little more sharp, right? But there was some smoothness. I thought that their onboard software for dealing with all the situations where you want to manipulate your footage, like the beautification, to have the big eyes and the really small chin like an alien.
Right, okay. Essential
stuff like that. But they've done really good because they even have the depth of focus, right?
Okay.
So, and it's really quite good. Like the Coke can I took a picture of, you could see the water droplets in the background. It was super blurred out.
So the cams on this guy is a real winning feature.
Yeah, like if you're after like a budget smartphone with a killer camera, this to me would be it.
Right, okay.
So this only has a mono speaker.
Yep, if you take the back off, you can see like right in the corner, you've actually got a very small mono speaker. But it actually performs reasonably well. It's not the loudest thing. I mean, compared to HTC's boom sound, it's miles off. But then if you look at the price range and you look at the fact that it is basically a phablet, a big smartphone device, it performs reasonably well. It's not too tinny, it's not too loud, but then again, it's pretty clear and crisp. Yeah, pretty good. So this is Intel on Android. And Intel on Android, there aren't that many options out there. I mean, the Clover Trail CPU processor, or SoC I should say, it's been out for a while. It's a year old. We haven't seen many devices. And here's ASUS with their Zenfone range.
Yeah, usually on mobile devices, Intel shows up on tablets, Windows 8 tablets. But there are very few Android tablets. But I think that Intel's definitely bridged the gap where there's very few apps that don't work. But we did come across one.
Well, gaming.
GTA.
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas just wouldn't boot. Just wouldn't. The game engine would not load. I think that's a driver issue that maybe Intel just needs to tweak a little bit. Maybe work with.
So apart from that one game that didn't load, how was the gameplay on the rest of the games that we usually use for like high intensity graphics gaming?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was pretty flawless. In fact, it even excelled in certain areas where the Qualcomm kind of showed some artifacting. The NBA game,
the NBA game, that's right. Everyone said they have rashes.
That's right. But the Intel SoC didn't have any of those issues, which was quite impressive. And I think generally using the device as well, I mean, the Android experience is very slick. It's pretty...
ASUS is actually claiming that that this is the fastest iteration of Android on the market in terms of just navigation.
Right. But is it KitKat? No. We're stuck on Jelly Bean. But we should be getting that within the next. So there is a major software update coming in, I think, 2 weeks. And I did have a few issues with the device. But it's hard to say that if they're going to get fixed or not when the major software update comes out. So I mean, it's things like
what's next and the share link, and so all the ASUS apps are going to get a major condensation into one app.
Okay.
But I didn't really have any performance issues, so to speak. So
So
the
generally,
smoothness and the quickness of the phone is totally
okay.
totally.
So we can say, in all honesty, that Intel's figured out Android now, and it's pretty strong. And one thing which is important with hardware in general is the battery life. So
And this is excellent. 3,200 milliampere battery. I didn't have it on power saving, and I got 2 days. But ASUS's power saving mode is really quite good. On their pad phone lineup, it would double the battery life.
okay, that's
Right?
impressive.
And so with this one, I can push on to 3 days.
3 days.
3 days. And this is like 2 days of real use, not like I left my phone and I forgot it and it was
Yeah.
on. Like I'm actually using it.
That's very impressive.
It's really impressive. That is another just mind-blowing thing about this device. It has really good battery life.
Awesome.
So I was hesitant when I found out that Zen UI was going to be launching, because as a pad phone user, I loved the fact that ASUS didn't mess around with
Right.
Android, that they, out of every other smartphone maker on the market, gave me a really vanilla version with like just the right amount of UI tweaks that were useful. They weren't intrusive. And so when I saw this, I was like, this is not vanilla Android. What have they done?
So
But once you start using it, I was honestly a little horrified when I first saw it at that event and I was playing around with it. I was like, God, it looks like Apple with the circles, right?
yeah.
And I was afraid that they might have gone a little too Apple initially when I saw the quick start menu with all these circles, but I like it. Right, it's nice.
It won you
It's
over in the
simple.
end, huh?
It did win me over in the end. ASUS has put it like a crap load of really interesting software additions, which I was like there's a flashlight in the quick, right, and you can even do SOS, right? So it's like
wow.
yeah, and so there's just a lot of like really interesting little software additions. They always do their mirror, and they have an onboard. They're trying to push omelet chat, right? And there's share link, right? And so like some of these things I'm not sure that they're going to work out as like winning you into ASUS's ecosystem. I mean, I can see the value of omelet chat, but who else? And share link, you need another ASUS device, right? If that was available in the store, but like I'm nitpicking on a few things, like their what's that called? What's next? That's a really interesting iteration of software where it tries to pull in all of your calendars with weather and like showing meeting changes and locations right on as a widget, right? And on your lock screen. So like they're really trying to make this a productivity device, and like they're valuable widgets that would be in premium devices. So that's kind of an interesting thing for me.
Okay, that is interesting.
So they won me over in the end, even though
They didn't go the vanilla path,
they didn't go the vanilla path.
but in the end, actually, it's still pretty decent.
In the end, it's all right, and it's still Android. I can skin it if I want.
Okay, cool.
So 6,000 NT, $200.
That's pretty impressive. Really,
That's a
really is.
really impressive price point. Compared to all the big name phablets, looking at $600-700. This is just a fraction of the price. Really nice premium look and feel. I mean, I think it's a steal.
So hardware-wise, it defends itself well. It's well placed at that price point.
Yeah, it's a mid-range. It's a mid-range device. It has a mid-range processor. It has a average display. We do have that one build quality issue, which is unfortunate, but the camera is excellent.
Yeah.
Right, the battery life is excellent.
True. How does it defend itself against, say, the Xiaomi or the Redmi Note from Xiaomi, which is a little bit cheaper than this?
A little bit cheaper than this, a little bit smaller than this as well.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, these are going to compete head-to-head, right? But I think that
Features like the camera and maybe
features like the camera, and I think the battery life as well, right? And the ability to customize, which is big here in Asia, because both of these devices are going to be Asia specific.
Right.
So I mean, you can get this in all kinds of different colors,
Right.
which everyone loves to customize their own phone. So I think Xiaomi has a run for its money now.
This is a very aggressive price point. Awesome. this is ASUS's first real run at the 6-inch phablet segment.
The mid-range market as well,
Mm-hmm, yeah.
right? The Pad phone series was high-end, and it was ASUS proved that they could make excellent high-end devices that, to me, came into the top 5 handsets last year.
Okay.
Yeah, but this mid-range device, I think, doesn't represent the amazing production abilities that ASUS proved they had with the Pad phone.
Okay. So if it's not the epitome of their hardware expertise, it's somewhere below that. It's a mid-range device.
Well, I mean, like, it has all like the nice detailed high-end markings that ASUS is kind of known for, right? Like they have like this nice soft touch finish on the back that feels incredibly premium. They've put a lot of really nice high-end software in there, like the Do It Later, like that heavy integration with my messaging and my calendar and all of these things. I mean, like they're nice little additions, right? And even the cover with the Magic 8 Ball, that's adorable.
Yeah.
But it's true. The build quality, I think they could have stepped it up a little bit. I don't know if this is just an early run issue or if the display the display issue is an issue.
It is a factor.
It is a factor.
That aside, we would have had a real winner. Let's say a pretty much a mean
knocking
contender.
it out of the park.
Exactly.
But now I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to give it my all 1,000% in, just because of that one thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting conclusion.
Yeah. So the ASUS Zenfone 6, a nice attempt for ASUS at a mid-range phone. I'm Nicole Scott from Mobile Geeks, and this is Stuart Haston.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.